hope you all are good. So, students, today we will discuss your next chapter, that is chapter number 15, that is light. So, first of all, in the page number 167, in the first paragraph, we will discuss about light. So, basically, light is what? Light is a form of energy that is essential for life to exist. For the lives to exist, it is very necessary that light is present. So plants uses the energy of sunlight to make their food, that is the process which we popularly known as photosynthesis. So photosynthesis, for the process of photosynthesis to take place, light is very much necessary there. So during this process, what happens is plants give out oxygen that we need to live. That we means the humans which we need to live, that is given out by the plants. The food manufactured by plants provide energy to all animals through various food chains and webs. Light also helps us see things. Now the food which is manufactured by the plants provides energy to all the living organisms, to all the animals through various food chains and also through webs. Light also helps us to see things. This is the most common property of a light, that light helps us to see things. Thus, we can say that light is important for our food, oxygen and energy needs. So, light plays an important role in our food, oxygen and the energy needs of our body. Now, next we come to the topic, that is luminous and non-luminous objects. Now, first of all, we will try to understand what is luminous objects. So here three pictures are there, that is some examples of luminous objects. So first one is sun, the candle, the next one is light bulb. So the objects that give out their own light, means those objects which are giving out their own light, are called as luminous objects. So objects that do not give out their own light are called non-luminous objects, and the objects which do not give out their own light are called as non-luminous objects. All sources of lights, now it is very important that all sources of lights are luminous objects, means they all are giving out their own light. The light given out or emitted by luminous objects falls on non-luminous objects. Now the light which is given out or it is emitted by the luminous objects, it falls on the non-luminous objects and then reflected to our eyes. Then it gets reflected to our eyes, and then we see the non-luminous objects getting glow. The moon is a non-luminous object, but it shines because it reflects the sunlight that falls on it. So the example of this thing is the moon, which is a non-luminous object, so it does not give out its own light, but it shines because of the light which is falling on the moon from the sunlight, and it is reflected, and that light is reflected which falls on it. The light which the sunlight which is falling on it is reflected, and we can see that the moon is glowing or the moon is shining. When light from an object, luminous or whether it is non-luminous, reaches the eye, the stimulus is passed on to the brain and we see the objects. So within a fraction of seconds, when the light from the luminous or non-luminous objects reaches our eyes, the stimulus is passed on to the brain and we start seeing the object. The sun, glowing, electric bulbs and fireflies are some examples of luminous objects. Now here are another some examples, like the sun, the glowing electric bulb and fireflies are some examples of luminous objects. Now pencils, books, vessels, cloths and walls are some common examples of non-luminous objects. Now the pencils, books, vessels, clothes and walls, these all are not giving out their own lights, hence these comes under non-luminous objects. Now we move on to the next page, that is the first topic is sources of light. Any object that emits light is called a source of light. So any object which is emitting light is called a source of light. Now the sun, the stars and the fireflies are some natural source of light. Now these are the natural source of light, means no other things are required, no other things are working out on them. They are glowing because of their natural sources of light. Candles, oil lamps, electric bulbs, CFLs and fluorescent lamps like the tube lights are made by us, means the human beings are making these. So these things are man-made and are called as artificial source of light. As these are not natural, these are made by humans and other sources are used, hence these are termed as artificial sources of light. Now the next topic comes is transparent, translucent and opaque materials. Now we will try to understand what are transparent, translucent and opaque materials. Now here we start with it. When light falls on an object, one of three things can happen. The light can either pass through the object, be absorbed by the object or be reflected by the objects. Usually when a ray of light or when sunlight or anything light from any object falls on an object, the light, three things can happen with the light. Either the light can pass through the object, or it can be absorbed by the object, or it can be reflected back by the objects. Materials like glass and water allow most of the light that falls on them to pass through them. Means the materials like glass and water, what they do is they pass on the light through them. We can see through these materials clearly. So hence we can see through these materials very clearly. Materials that allow most of the light. Now those materials which allow most of the light to pass through them are called as transparent materials. Now certain materials like butter paper, oiled paper, frosted glass and ground glass allow some light, some amount of light. It does not allow whole of the light, but it allows some light to pass through them. We cannot see through them very clearly, but the materials which allow only a part of the light from these things to pass through them are called as translucent materials. Now transparent and translucent materials reflect a certain amount of light. If they did not, we would be unable to see them. Now these transparent and translucent materials, both of them, what they do, they reflect a certain amount of light. As if they do not do that thing, we will not be able to see them. They would be invisible. If they do not reflect the light, they would become invisible. Light cannot pass through some materials like wood, stone. You can also try this at home, like glow a torch and try to focus that torch through a wood. You can see that through wood, stone, rubber and metal, light is not getting passed through them. So therefore we cannot see through them. They reflect or absorb almost all the light that falls on them. So what these objects do, they either reflect it or they absorb almost all of the light, and because of that the light is not allowed to pass through them, and the materials through which light cannot pass through are called as opaque materials. Now next comes is light travels in straight line. Light always travels in a straight line. So here given that, have you ever seen a beam of light traveling in a straight line? In a movie hall, you can see that the light from the projector falls on the screen opposite to it and not anywhere else on the walls of the hall. In both cases, light seems to be traveling in straight lines. Now you can see in a movie hall that through the projector, the light is falling directly on the screen through a straight line and not on any other paths. Okay, so this seems as that the light is traveling in a straight line. So the property of a line, the property which is making the line to travel in a straight line is known as the rectilinear propagation of light. That property which is allowing the light to travel in a straight line is known as the rectilinear propagation of light. You will notice that when the tube is bent or when one card is slightly moved in activity 15.2, that is here, like 3 cards are placed and a torch is blown and it is allowed to pass, and the light is allowed to pass through them. If any of the card is moved or the card is blocked, we will see that this is because the path of light is cut off or blocked, means the light sources will be no longer visible. Means if we move one of the card or we bent one of the card, we will see that the light source is not available. This is because that whether we have blocked it or whether we have shifted it. So this activity is proving that the light travels in a straight line. You can try this activity in your home also. Like you can place 3 cards with a hole in it and you will pass a torch through it, the light will travel through them. Okay, so if we bend one of them, what will happen? The light source will no longer be visible.